Pretty spectacular background you got there.
Well, of course, I'm the cosmic cowboy, so I obviously reside in the clouds.
You are the cosmic cowboy.
All right. Well, hey, Vaughn, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
All right. Well, hey, this is the last time we talked about time travel. You don't have any updates on that now, do you?
No, I've moved on to the new books. Which was the manifesting book, and the newest book is called Mysterious Messages from Beyond.
Mm-hmm.
So those kind of like expand on the time travel book
mm-hmm.
in that it takes consciousness in other places, like listening,
mm-hmm.
sending messages, being receptive. And then of course, traveling, out, I look at beyond space and time and how we send our messages.
Mm-hmm.
So all of my books are really about consciousness. So I've written on dreams, I've written on time, written on messages and sending messages and receiving messages and healing. And it's all about consciousness. It's all the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm a one-trick pony.
Well, have you yourself received messages?
Oh, yeah.
But from who?
Well, dead people.
Whoa.
People.
Well,
I've received messages from beyond.
Mm-hmm.
I've received messages that were, I would say, what would call like cryptic, and then I don't know who sent the message, but it like saved my life. I've received those kind of messages. Now, those could be those could be divine intervention if you want. It could be an angel whispering in my ear,
mm-hmm.
or the Lord Himself. I don't doubt that for a moment. All I know is that I'm ready to listen. And what I've tried to do is tell people how to prepare themselves to be a better listener.
Okay, so are you saying that people get messages, but
They
they just
do.
don't listen?
They don't always listen. If you're not listening, if your ears aren't on, you're not going to hear a thing. By the way, it might sound okay because I have a fan running in the background. I could cut it.
No, it's not coming over very bad over here, so we're good there. Well, I mean, me personally, I try not to talk to dead people because I don't know if I want to know what they have to say. I mean, are they? What kind of messages are you getting?
Well, I have the same opinion. I don't try to contact dead people. And I always discourage people from trying to reach the dead. Even if it's a loved one you miss, let them move on. Their time is over.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to come to you and say something, let it be ready to listen.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I ever tell anyone.
Well, now to me there's a difference between. I agree with you, not seeking it out. Let's just say, but people have said they've received messages. Now, one in particular, I want to get to first off because this is one of our viewers, Tony in Louisiana, said that he closed a portal in his bedroom closet and he hears knocking and voices. Now, that don't sound like good messages, or are they?
Well, I agree with you. People that play with spirits like that are playing with fire. That's kind of dangerous. Opening portals, there are portals. There are portals, definitely. There are portals. I mean, in my book, Time Shifts, I talked about portals. You'll be walking along and suddenly, magnets don't work. Everything is screwy. And suddenly you're in a different time and then you're back,
Mm-hmm.
time portals,
Mm-hmm.
So, and I understand that, but I also know that there's an element of, let's call it what it is, black magic, where people will try to actually summon spirits. They'll actually try to call the dead. They'll try to call, powerful entities from beyond, it's always obscure who they are or what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And for that reason primarily, I say, leave it alone. You don't know what you're playing with.
Oh, well, that sounds like the correct perspective there. By the way, Vaughn, we have on our website two semi-related questions or poll questions here. One of them
Oh,
is have you ever seen or have you ever heard a voice? So people get the answer to that question, and the answers they have is yes, I heard a voice in my head. No, I never have. An invisible source spoke. Yes, the voice of God. Yes, I heard a voice from the past, and yes, I heard a voice just before they took me away. And
I like that one.
and the second poll question for today is if your pet could speak, and their choices there are I saw what you did last night.
Yeah.
The same food again. Pick up my poop, human. Stop with the baby talk. You know how people go, oh, you like that. And one says, stop kissing me. Ooh, human animal stuff, it's interrelational stuff don't really work. And then another one is, yes, I am plotting against you. That's and the last one is, you're my best friend. So let's take a look in the first poll. Have you heard a voice? And the respondents say, yes, in my head, 27%. No, I never have 18, and invisible 18. So about all the same there. Now, I frankly myself have heard a voice. Over my lifetime, I've heard several voices. Now, in all those cases, none of them appeared to be nefarious, and certainly I didn't conjure up the dead or do any incantation, and they usually had to do with some good event or some interaction. Right. So I'm just saying that is out there. So there you go. Oh, well, let's check the pets, if the pets could speak, because the reason that's in there, because I think in your bio it says something about messages from pets.
Yes.
All right. So if your pet can speak, 62% says you're my best friend. And then 12% says the same food again. You know how pets, you're always giving them that same old canned food.
I know.
But I tell you what, now we raise chickens.
Yeah.
And these guys, man, gals, they get table scraps, they get watermelon rinds, they get apples. Man, they're spoiled, man. They never have the same diet, because I figure eating that dry old chicken food. So
well, chicken feed's getting expensive too. We raise chickens out here. And it's like, whoa, it's getting real expensive to feed the chickens. So
yeah, so our chickens couldn't say the same old food again and start complaining.
Yeah.
By the way, little tiger from France, welcome to the show. Well, so questions come in as we go, Vaughn, but so
I love these questions, I really do. And I think the first one about people hearing message, what was it, 28%? Yeah. I mean, that's pretty constant. It's like usually it's about a fourth of the people will say that they've experienced it, because a fourth of the people are pretty much open-minded, and they're listening, and they're aware, let's say, and I don't mean that in a negative way about people who haven't heard messages. It just never occurred to them, that there would be messages that you'd have to really listen to, that are like, let's say, nonverbal communications. Now, we all get nonverbal communications. We get them from our pets, right? Mm-hmm. And we get them from our ladies too, like all the time, dirty looks, yeah. So we're all the time getting nonverbal communications.
There's this thing out there that people consider, if you pray to God, communicate upward, that everything's all good. But if you hear from God, all of a sudden you're hearing voices. That's not God. I mean, it's almost as if it's a mode to dissuade you out of that. In other words, it's okay to say something, but if you hear something, there's something wrong with you. By the way, speaking of pets, man, you got a cat running around behind you?
Yes, I do.
If your cat could tell you one thing, what would he be saying?
Which one is it? Oh,
it's a black cat.
The black cat is like pet me, don't pet my sister. They're very jealous of each other.
Well, see, when I look at cats, if I took that poll question, I would say, yes, I am plotting against you, because to me, cats always looking like they're plotting to do something. I mean,
they're sneaky.
They're thinkers, man. You got to watch them.
They're not quite as loyal as a dog, I tell you that.
After the next nuke war, it's not going to be Planet of the Apes. It's going to be Planet of the Cat People.
Well, I think so. I think they're going to take over.
But all right, so you're saying if you have heightened consciousness,
yes,
then you might be more acute hearing of subtle sounds and voices. Well, that sounds reasonable enough. If one train, it's like if you start looking for pennies, you're going to find them. They're out there. A lot of them are out there.
Well, that's right. You got to look,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to look with new eyes, and you have to hear with new ears. I mean, I started to think like, what are really religious people going to think about this? I have a religious background, I really do, and I thought, well, I better investigate. Do you know that I found about 3 dozen references in the Old and New Testament to basically the same statement? You must learn to hear with new ears and learn to see with new eyes, and it's very interesting. You have ears, yet you hear not. This is very interesting. So it occurred to me, if God did want to speak to you, would you hear him? Would you? It's a real question. People claim that they hear, God, or they hear angels, or divine messengers speaking to them. Do they? Some do and some don't. Well, how come some do and some don't? I think that's really, really odd. I would suggest that some people are better listeners. And this is a different kind of listening, by the way. This is not listening with your ears. You're not gonna. It's not going to come over on a megaphone. It's not going to be on a truck. With blaring the messages that goes down the road. It's going to be just because here's the thing: these are messages, mysterious messages, and they're aimed at a party of one. They're aimed at you. They're a very private message, and that's why they're not verbal. That's why they're not auditory. You see.
So how do you train yourself? I mean,
Yeah, you have to go within. So I always tell people there's the you that you see on the outside, and there's a you on the inside. You have to go inside to find the true self, the inner self that dwells within.
okay,
That is your spirit, right? We
okay,
all have one. It's
all
our
right, got spirit.
connection to the soul, and you have to activate that level of consciousness. You have to learn to operate on a spirit level. Now, I don't mean like floating around like some ghostly figure, but you have to develop a new sense of awareness that exceeds the 5 physical senses.
Mm. Well, I was looking at uh, in First Kings 19,
Mm-hmm.
King James version. It says
Yeah,
the Lord was not in the wind, and
yeah,
after the wind an earthquake,
yeah,
but the Lord was not in the earthquake, and after
yeah,
the earthquake a fire, but the
yeah,
Lord was not in the fire, and
yeah,
after the fire a still small voice.
yeah,
And so it seems to me that people are waiting for gigantic messages from
yeah,
the other side,
yes.
from God, but maybe they should be considering that still small voice that may be speaking to them right now.
Boy, I think you've got it. We have to be ready to listen. And there are people who do listen. And they do receive messages, and sometimes they're very insightful. They're almost always very personal. If not personal, they're messages as to what you should be doing with your life. I mean, they're
Mm-hmm.
very important
Mm-hmm.
messages, and they're very private messages. They're very personal
Do
messages.
you
Yeah,
feel do you feel, Vaughn, that you're on path where you should be?
I'm sure trying to be.
Hey, that's a good question. But let me say, the viewers that are watching, we on the website we have the live chat on the left side. If you feel like you are on the correct path, just put a yes or a no, real simple in there, and I'll kind of relay it to Vaughn on that. All right, Rose has a question. Says, Vaughn, I had an alien encounter, and the alien, I believe, opened a portal. Do you think aliens can open portals?
Well, I wouldn't put it past them. I've personally never met an alien that I know of. Now,
Mhm.
now they say that they could be walking down the street and I wouldn't know them, or they could be, slithering around and I wouldn't know them, or hiding in bushes. I just have never personally had. No, I have seen UFOs. Yeah, but they have not come into my life. They haven't spoken to me. I understand that some people have had alien encounters. I don't doubt that for a minute. And I don't doubt for a minute that they have communicated with people.
Mhm.
So, but going back to my earlier book, Time Shifts, And looking ahead to the book I'm working on now that'll come out this fall on lucid dreams, you know, there is a possibility that aliens could be speaking to us from another time and place. Mm-hmm. That is to say that these aliens could be us in the future, or they could be us in the past, you know, because outside the physical realm, mm-hmm. in this world of spirit that we're talking about, there is a timelessness, and it allows people to cross the dimension of what we call the time barrier, beyond time, beyond space. I think that all the time people are getting messages from the past and the future, and some of those could be coming from us or people just like us.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's something that's deeply personal to me.
Yeah,
I will share on this show. My mom died when I was 2, and so I never knew her. And recently, to my surprise, there was a treasure trove of letters, which I in fact just got today and hadn't had a chance to go through them. But the odds are that I am going to get a message somewhere in those letters,
yeah,
from my mom, who I never met. A literal message. And my brother who got this treasure trove told me that there will be definitive information in there.
Yeah.
That I will probably be deeply spoken to. By the way, somebody in the live chat said that God doesn't make appointments, and I guess you have to use
right, that. Right. He's way beyond appointments. When he wants to talk to you, he'll talk to you.
Well, I would say that needs to be measured just a tad, because in fact the Bible says specifically it's appointed unto man once to die, and after that is judgment. So he does make appointments, and I maybe it's a matter of semantics there on that there. Oh, by the way, our question: are people on the right path? Kentucky Girl says yes, I'm on the right path. Our moderator Jay says I'm on the right path, and Starry Sky says yes. And I guess being when you know you're on the right path, you're protected. So there's a good question, Vaughn. If you're on the wrong path, do nefarious things happen to you until you straighten up and get back on the path?
Well, friends out there, if you're on the wrong path, cheer up, because you can always find your way again. You know, this is the beauty of it. You know, this is why we live. This is why the path is long and the path is winding. You know, I walked up a mountain today. It wasn't a very big mountain, but it was a winding path. There were lots of different trails you could get lost on. You know, and I think that life is like, we call it the hero's journey. You know, like Odysseus, looking for Ithaca. He's out there sailing, the lost Odysseus, or Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. All of these stories, are like profound stories of a hero's journey of discovery. And I think that myths tell us great truths that need to be told in a story form. And one of them is the hero's journey. I think the point is that every one of us is on a hero's journey. There's an inner hero inside you, and this is your special connection. And this is the path you should be on. Now, on this path that we're on, if you want to call it a spiritual path or a path of discovery or your life path, it is a path that every one of us is on, but some of us like sit down, like I did on the trail today, and going up the mountain because I was tuckered out, right? So I sat down. And people pass me. And it's like, well, I'm not making much progress on the path, am I? Some people get waylaid, or they take a misturn, or they get lured away by someone saying, oh, come on over here, try this path. So we're all on this path, but we don't all travel it in the same way, at the same pace, and with the same results. But we're all on this path. And what it is a path of self-discovery and spiritual insight and learning and growth. And along the way, we have challenges and we have opportunities, and we learn from them. Everyone is familiar with the hero's journey, but I think that people don't see themselves as a champion in their own life. And this is really important, I think, to entertain this idea that you are your own inner champion.
So you're saying inside the cosmic cowboy is a hero?
That's right. And when you take that all the way to the extreme, my friend, then you say that the darkest hombre out there is also potentially a hero, a champion, but he just hasn't found his way or her way.
Well, what if this dark person, say, blows up a building, kills all kinds of people? If he doesn't get his message right, what happens to him?
Yeah, Ted Kaczynski. I'm sure that the Oklahoma City bomber thought he was doing something good. They're just confused people, they're just sadly confused people, and I think they're not listening, because I think that the truth is in the wind, the truth is in the fire, because in the fire and in the wind is the voice of God.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the spiritual guidebook says that God is not the author of confusion. And you just said that the people that do really evil things are confused. So that tells you right there, the messages that they're getting are not from God, because his message is not confusion. I guess if you get messages from God, you're going to get a clear understanding of what that message is, of some clear direction. But if you get a message, let's say that's dubious, it's doubtful, that seems to, like a message that says to you, your neighbor, hit your fence and or nicked your tree with a lawnmower or whatever, and that's a bad neighbor. I mean, you begin to think hostile thoughts. And that's not a that's not a good message to be getting, would it be?
Well, yeah, it's not a good message to be getting, but you have to sort out what is the real message. The message is that, I need to work things out with my neighbor. Maybe that's the message, So I think the confusion comes to where we're trying to communicate, and trying to be good receivers and analyze the information. And when we're only listening with our physical ears, we're only processing things with our brain, our little pea brains. We're only limited to the frame of reference, the people we know, and our opinions about them. And we get terribly confused. And that's why I always say, go within, and let spirit guide you, because I think the inner you, the true self that dwells within your consciousness, your spirit self, is more able to analyze these situations purely, rather than simply playing them off on your own mental memories and frame of reference, which can be very confusing. So I think, to answer your question, I think that the message isn't wrong. I think that the messenger isn't wrong. I think the receiver needs to be tuned, and that's us.
Yeah. Well, see, what I'm suggesting is you could be tuned into the wrong channel, because I believe there's.
Oh, yeah. Well, absolutely, absolutely.
Now,
so this is very serious consideration. So I mean, you have to be getting good information, right? If you're not getting good information, I mean, I was guided by a couple of interesting books, and these are old books, that are over 100 years old. One was Thought Forms and Thought Power, and I had some other books on the consciousness to guide me. A lot of books have been written on consciousness, and usually they boil down to the message goes out. Well, I mean, there's three parts. I mean, there's the sender, there's the message, and the conveyance method, and then there's the receiver. Now, if the message falls on deaf ears, it's not heard. If it isn't understood, it's not processed. So there are many messages that we receive in this form that are like non physical messages, non-verbal, non-auditory messages, silent messages,
or non-local messages too, as well.
Non-local messages that we don't process. We, in communication, we use the term processing the information and making it a part of us, and it doesn't then become part of you, because it doesn't feel right. So if you get these odd messages that just don't make sense to you or don't feel right or don't register as right to you, then you're not going to process it, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And then you don't internalize the message. The key is internalizing the message.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
when you internalize the message, then the person who hears the message becomes the message.
Or he that hath an ear, let him hear.
That's right. That's right.
The holy writ says, God
Yeah.
speaketh once, yea, he speaketh twice, and it's a matter of kings to search a matter out. So it seems to me that, again, we are getting messages,
Yeah.
and we need to probably decipher a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because I just don't think it's like, spiritual gurus walking around, walking on
No.
coals getting messages because they burn themselves or cut themselves. I don't think it goes like that. But we got Vaughn, we got more questions coming in,
Okay.
so let's go ahead and get one.
Yeah.
Australian Ben says, history makes heroes of ordinary people through their personal sacrifice during times of adversity. True or false?
Yeah, definitely. And we're called to great moments. This becomes then part of your hero's journey.
Oh, okay. And here's from Kentucky Girl. She said, Vaughn, have you had any wonderful supernatural experiences?
Well, the one thing that happened to me, I always like to tell the story. I was working at a book publisher in Illinois, and I hadn't been there very long, and the phone rang. And I pick up the phone, and a man in a very thick accent, as though he were calling from India, and it sounded very, very old, is speaking to me. But even though this goes back to where we had landlines, what I thought was then a long distance call from India from an old man was clear as a bell, as though he were right in the room with me. He called and he told me that he wanted to take me on a lightning tour of India, that it would change my life forever. He'd show me things. And I said, well, that's very kind of you. I said, but I have this job here, you see, and are you sure you're calling for me? I mean, who are you? He never answers who he is. He keeps on going about, he wants me to take me on this lightning tour of India. Did I tell this story last time I was on your show?
No, I don't recall it.
Okay. So, I mean, this had a profound effect on me, actually, because he called again. And he says the same thing, and I say, well, who are you? I think you're calling for my predecessor, Clarence. He was the one that, ran this publishing company. I'm the new guy. I don't think you meant to talk to me. And he didn't seem to acknowledge anything I was saying, except he did say, I'm calling for you, sir, because I want you to go with me on this lightning tour of India. And I want to show you things that will open your eyes, and it will change your life forever. And I said, well, I said, I can't do this. This is very kind of you. Once again, who are you and why are you calling me? So he calls me again. But before he calls me again, I go over to the other building across the street. And there we have a switchboard operator that when somebody calls long distance and wants to speak to somebody in such and such department, she would switch you over to your office, right? And I said, did you switch over a guy, last Tuesday and the Friday before that? He called in the afternoon, really thick accent, sounded really old, as though he were calling from India and he wanted to speak to me. She says, nobody like that called, Vaughn. That man must have called you directly. I said, well, how would he have my extension number? I'm new. So, and I asked people over there, were you playing a trick on me? I asked everybody that I thought might have been able to muster up this accent. I didn't ask like little children or, little old ladies, but people that might have faked the accent. And they all looked at me like I was bonkers. So, I got the third call, and the third call is the same thing. And he goes on and on. I want you to come with me on this lightning tour of India. And I said, I cannot do it. I thank you so much. I don't know who you are. You must be calling for Mr. Pedersen. I'm new here. And he said, if you cannot come with me, sir, on my lightning tour of India, then I will tell you one more thing that will change your life forever. I want you to learn to meditate be in the early morning light outdoors beside running water. Get very quiet and still, and you will move in the light. He said, you should try this, sir. It will change your life forever. So he didn't call again. So I went out there. I got my bicentennial blanket, and I went out there and spread this big old yellow bicentennial blanket beside this fountain we had in the back grounds. And there was a fountain, there was running water. And I get there in the early morning because it's like late summer. And I do this several mornings. And it's really profound. It is really special to do something like that in the early morning beside the water. And I'm thinking, this guy's pretty sharp. I wonder who the heck he was. And it's an old Indian guy who's really wise, and he does these tours of India, and maybe he's famous. So we had a bookstore on the first floor of our publication building. And I went down there and I asked the bookstore manager, where are the books by people from India that I could look at, on like meditation. And she said, they're all down there. She said, all the good ones are down there. I said, well, I don't want to look at the wackos, these fly-by-night people trying to make a buck. I want to look at the real thing. So she says, well, then you go right down there. She points me in a direction, and I walk back there, and there's a book face out, like it's waiting for me. And it's on one of those little book stands. Mm-hmm. And it's a book on meditating in the early morning light.
Wow.
It is an Indian name. I won't say his name. And I flipped the book over because I like to read the back cover. Who is this guy? Who is this guy saying all this stuff? And I read it, and he says he's famous for his lightning tours of India, which he would always conduct in late August or early September. He would take people through India and show them things, the river Ganges and everything. And then at the very end, it said that he had this technique for meditating in the early morning light.
Wow.
And at the end, at the bottom, it said where he was born in India. And then it said when he was born. And then it said when he died. This man had died before he called me. And there's not any doubt in my mind that this is the man who called me. Now, that changed my life because I got involved in hospice, and I started working with people, getting them to meditate in morning light with running water. I had a friend named Deb. I remember she was dying, and we put her in a hospice program, and we had to move her bed a little bit so that the morning light would come through the window and shine on her bed. And I put a little water fountain, next to her, one of those little models on the desk just beside her bed. Mm-hmm. And we did this. We started meditating in this early morning light beside water. And it changed her. It changed her to where, I went in and I said to the head nurse, I said, Deb's going to be just fine. She's going to walk out of here. She said, Vaughn, nobody walks out of here. I said, Deb will. Deb will. Now, that man really changed my life. Now, maybe this doesn't mean anything to anyone else, but the message that he gave me changed my life forever. Mm. Now, that was a mysterious message from beyond.
Wow. Very, very, very interesting. You mentioned about early. I know in Proverbs 8:17 it says, "I love them that love me, and those that seek me early shall find me." So there is something about getting up early and start doing some seeking. But let me tell you,
absolutely is, because the light is special, and the light is the extension. The light represents. I think it represents God.
So here's an experience I had. I was in my hometown, and I was driving around with my wife, and all of a sudden I had this clear unction. I call it unction. It wasn't a voice, a clear unction. And I said, we need to give a random gift to somebody today.
Wow.
I told her that. I didn't know where it come from. I didn't hear a voice this time, but I have heard voices, and I can get in that later if we want to.
Yeah.
But so people don't report me to the psych ward just yet. But so I heard a clear, a clear unction, compelling. It was compelling. I said, well, we got to do that. And she said, well, we got to make a stop first. And she said, well, let's go to the Hallmark store in our local town. And so we went to the Hallmark store. This is right after I told her that. And so we're looking at Vera Bradley purses. And I'm thinking, hey, you know what? I would look good with that one right there. So there's Vera Bradley purses on one side, Vera Bradley backpacks on the right side. And in the middle, there was a book open on a stand.
Yeah.
And I looked down at the book and it said, give a random gift to somebody today.
That's it.
I kid you not. And
That's
so
it.
now,
see, that was the message meant just for you.
It obvious. I mean, I can't dispute that. If you say it was next day, next week, whatever. Yeah. Why was there a book in the Vera Bradley purse section?
Yeah.
And
there's no meaningless coincidence. I mean, this
who
is
gave the message?
Synchronicity that's profound.
So who gave the message?
Well, that's it. We don't always know who the messenger is. But I think if the message is good, I think we should be grateful.
Okay. All right.
We can't always see the messenger.
Okay. Our poll numbers have changed here. Have you heard a voice? Let's check this results out. 27% now say they heard it in their head. Yeah. And then the rest of them all ties. I don't really know what that number is. I haven't. An invisible source. I've had invisible sources speak to me. I believe I've heard the voice of God too as well. And then a voice from the past. Nobody says they took them away for hearing voices, and that's good. So we don't want our viewers to be going to the psych ward, because I don't think good things happen there. But so
I personally think that every one of us has an assigned guardian angel, and if you're not listening for your guardian angel, you're not going to hear anything. So what's the point?
So how does a guardian angel speak to us? Does he speak to our mind? Is that?
Yeah. It plants thoughts in our minds. It's kind of like plants an idea or an impression. And I think that it's important to consider that your guardian angel isn't going to make choices for you. It's not going to pull you out of the fire necessarily. It's not going to answer big questions for you, because that's for you. That would be interfering in your life. You need to live your life. And this is a life challenge that we're all going through. But I think that the guardian angel is there to give inspiration and thoughts to you. But there again, this is very subtle. So if you're getting information that's this subtle, you need to really listen.
Okay, so using my personal story as the example.
Yeah.
Did I hear my own voice? Or did I hear somebody else that was using my voice to make it think it was coming from my own self?
Wow, that's a really good question. And I could see people lining up on both sides of this.
Yeah, I understand.
I don't know. In your case, I don't know.
It could be either.
I do think that our inner self is wiser. I think that that's the part of you that's eternal. I think it's the part of you that's pretty tuned in and aware, and it could have been you yourself speaking to you. I mean, I don't rule that out.
It almost seems likely that maybe it wasn't, because I consider the open book passage the confirmation, a confirmation of that unction, or one might say a premonition. But here's a good question from Bear, who gives our Bear report every week. Good news. He says, "What's the difference between a message and a premonition?"
Wow. Well, premonition would be that you would be like seeing into the future. Like people who have profound dreams, lucid dreams, will often have premonitions in their dreams, and they'll know, maybe not with total accuracy, but they'll have an idea what the future holds before it ever comes to pass. And did I answer the question?
Yeah.
Uh,
So, so it seems like there's a difference in the sexes. The women, they have sort of like uh, their women's intuition, but
yeah,
you never
yeah.
hear men's intuition.
Well, yeah. So women
So
seem to be
go ahead.
tuned into this idea of like they call it intuition, but it's like a sixth sense, right?
Mhm.
It's like a psychic awareness. This is just another way of saying, an awareness, and I think this is a gift of the spirit. It's something that dwells within each one of us, but it's not activated. It's not utilized by many of us.
So are women more capable of hearing these messages?
Probably. Probably.
Wow.
Well,
I'm getting
well, what aren't women more
good answer.
capable of?
I'm trying
Let's
to
be honest.
I'm trying to get you in trouble here,
No, no, I'll give it up. It's like, yeah, they are the greater sex. We just work for them, right? Yeah.
Mm. Okay. So what about the lost pets? How do they
Lost pets.
Yeah.
So lost pets will call out to you, and this happens to people from time to time. That even people that are um, uh, loved ones or friends or the children or something or a spouse, they'll be in trouble and they'll be far, far away. And you just know automatically they're in trouble because they're calling out to you. It's like an emergency telegram that you're getting,
Mhm.
an emergency fax. And
Mhm.
it's like sent like from them to you, point A to point B. This is my message to you.
Mhm.
They don't need a telephone. They don't need a fax machine. They don't need a computer to send an email.
Mhm.
They just send that message to you. Now we call that like sixth sense or like telepathy. But this is once again, it's like sending thought forms that are not verbal.
Mhm. I like the story in the Holy Writ about I think this is Balaam's donkey, and
Hmm.
Balaam is riding his donkey and he's trying to go somewhere, but the donkey sees a fierce angel in front of him, so he stops, and
Yeah,
Balaam gets all upset, starts beating the donkey. Well, at
yeah,
that point, God revealed what that animal donkey was saying, and the donkey started talking to him. And said, so why are you hitting me, man? There's an angel right there, and
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
so I mean, we got to watch because it seems that animals would try to talk to us if their vocal cords were released, if they could. So I think we really need to watch how we do treat the animals.
Well, some people do think that they try to communicate to us telepathically because now if you look at two dogs, they won't like bark at each other. Two cats, they won't necessarily scream at each other. Horses, they will not talk to each other. They communicate non-verbally. So I think that they're able to like send these non-verbal messages better than we are.
Yeah.
And probably at one time, before we developed such a vocabulary and such an ability to articulate verbally, we probably had this ability too.
Hmm. I mean, I have seen so many videos of, say, a pet owner would have a dog, and maybe all of a sudden they'll get a cat or something,
Yeah,
and then the dog will throw a fit.
yeah,
Get very
yeah,
moody and depressed, and you can clearly see the dog is saying, "I don't like it. I thought I was it, but now I got to share my life with this thing coming in the house." So
yeah.
there is, I mean, so that says that it is the animal is a sentient being. It has a consciousness and it has feelings, and but let's move it on down. So
Yeah.
if we know about the elephants, how that when an elephant dies, they have what's literally called a funeral procession, and they're
Yes.
crying. There are tears as they single file walk. I mean, it's crazy. But do bugs?
I
Are,
really like where you're going with this. I really, really do, because I also believe that I think all animals are sentient. I think that we've 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 sold them all short. We think that we're so much better than they are, but really, are we? I mean, birds can communicate really well within a huge flock, and everybody gets the message at once. It's remarkable. And as you say, elephants will remember. And different animals like deer, they'll always travel the same path over and over and over. It's like they have a something that we really don't have. It's like they communicate better.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
When I know there's a certain political strategy that says we shouldn't eat meat and we should just eat bugs and stuff. I mean, I can understand some part of that, but I saw a video one time. I believe it was from Europe, where this farmer he couldn't afford his cattle anymore, so I think he sold them off to this maybe a meat processing company or something. So the truck's pulling up, the cattle are getting in line, and they're videotaping this. And so they're just kind of being headed toward the gate where they're going to be taken away. But at the very last second, either the guy changed his mind selling them, or somebody came in and bought them, or I don't know what happened at that exact moment. When that happened, the video shows that they closed the gate and the cows went leaping across. All of them did. They were leaping for joy as they were crossing that pasture. I thought, I can't even believe I'm watching this. These cattle are demonstrating joy that they didn't get taken off and killed.
I think that's true of, cattle. If you heard anyone who's tried to herd cattle, they seem to understand what you're thinking and what you want of them. They can read you really, really well. And that's true of a lot of animals. Like my vet always says, when you take your pet in, don't tell your pet what you're going to do, or even think about it. Or if you're going to give medicine to your pet, don't even think about it. Because they'll pick it up. They'll pick up on it. They can just pick up on our thoughts. They're thought readers.
Wow.
But I think that I mean I've thought a lot about this idea of vegetarianism and not eating meat, because these are conscious animals, and we see like some animals are extremely intelligent, like dolphins and elephants and so forth. But I think that all of life, everything that's living has some consciousness to it, and whether you want to call that sentience or not. I mean, I argued in a previous book that plants are sentient, and here's where I make that statement. They've done experiments where they'll take plants and they'll put them in a dark room, and the plants, if they have the ability to send out runners quickly enough, they'll actually send the runners toward the light. They just know where the light is. It's like we don't always know where the light is. And I always think this is the greatest thing we need to learn. I think there's light everywhere in the world, but we can't always find it. Well, plants can. And I think that indicates, and like The Secret Life of Plants was a book that a study of working scientifically with plants to find out how aware they are, how well they communicate. They would take one plant, take it a mile down the road, and they would strap it up to electrodes. And the plant a mile away, its twin plant, would react to it. And they've also done the thing with the same experiment with eggs. I mean, just eggs in a carton that you go to the store and buy. These are probably not from the same chicken or even same hen house, but these are eggs that have been in the same carton. And one egg would be strapped to electrodes, and a mile away, the egg that sat next to it in the carton is responding emotionally. I mean, by that I mean we put them up on a, what do you call it, lie detector, and they can measure their emotional reaction response. So I think that all of life, and so you say, well, I'm going to eat just a plant-based diet. I think they're just probably as sentient and conscious as anything. We just don't understand how they operate.
So I have this cherry tree who's never bore any fruit, and I had a discussion with it not too long ago, and I flat out told this tree, I said, you don't start producing cherries, you're done. So he hasn't answered back yet. So I'm waiting to see if next spring that happens. But the threat to end his life is there. We're going to see if that cherry tree responds. Here's from Peter from Australia. It says, Vaughn, how is the gift of hearing activated or cultivated?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I do have exercises in the book. It's a little hard in a podcast like this to go through it, but it's like these are basically exercises to learn to be quiet and listen, to go to dwell within, to tune out your physical body, to kind of like relax your mind, to go deep within yourself, and to listen, and listening, on a spirit level to voices that may be coming your way. I think that a lot of like creative people, like artists, musicians, um, artists, writers, have this ability. They're able to listen and pick up on things. Many people report when they write that they get insight by being very quiet, getting very quiet and listening.
Mm.
And there was a wonderful series of book by Helene Karine and others, and they've written on the idea that great composers of music um, have been extremely good listeners.
Oh,
They would get into a mode where they'd listen, and it was almost like they were listening to music outside of them.
Sister, what you said when you were talking there, I was just thinking of uh, "Tomorrow Never Knows" by the Beatles, and it says,
Yeah.
"Turn off your mind, relax, and float downstream. Lay down all your thoughts, surrender to the void." Now, I don't know if I want to surrender to any kind of void, but it did say in a more upbeat thing, it says that you may see the meaning within, that love is all and love is everyone. So, I mean,
Yeah.
when you're heading towards love, however you get there, whatever
Yeah.
vehicle gets you there, even if it's in a context of something that you would disagree with, if it's still getting somebody to love, I think love is the answer, Vaughn. I'm sorry.
Love is the answer, as the
Yeah.
Beatles said.
Love is
But
all you need.
love is all you need.
Yeah.
But a lot of people confuse other things with love, and that's, of course, a very sad thing. True love.
So have you
Lo-
experienced true love?
I'm not sure that I have. I've always looked for it. I think true love asks for nothing and gives everything.
Well,
That's what would
that's
be my
profound.
definition of love.
That's profound.
That would be what I would.
That statement right there should just bring the universe should just send you the love of your life right now. Let me. So here we're all about love here. Let's go back to the live chat. Anybody in the live chat, have you experienced true love? Just a yes or no, real quick in there, and then they'll hear this here in a second, and then hopefully some people respond yes or no on that one there. So, but that is something we're seeking. I just think that if your life is filled with good things, or you're trying to make your life that way, I don't want to go down to the law of attraction, and a lot of people believe in that, but I think there is something good that can come about by that.
Well, it worries me how a lot of people they want to dedicate their life to making somebody else's life more wonderful. They become subservient to them. And love doesn't ask that of any of us. I mean, you have to be whole in order to give anything away. You have to love yourself and be healthy and whole enough to give something to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me.
Okay, we've already got some replies in the live chat about true love. Yes, from Jade. Antivirus is yes. Kentucky Girl, yes. Old grumpy Army veteran. Good thing he got some true love. He got some of that going on.
I never got much of that in the Army, but that's good for him. Yeah.
But your character is really positive on my mind. Didn't you say that you worked in hospice?
Yes.
Well, that the love in your heart, Vaughn. That right there is exemplary of that. It's that is the outlet. How long did you work in a hospice, sir?
Well, not very long. I mean, I lived in Oregon when we were starting one of the first hospices out there, and it was kind of a pioneer program, and
Mm-hmm.
and I was kind of in on the ground floor of that. And then when I lived in Minnesota, I worked with what was it, the Hawthorns. This was a Catholic society. Rose Hawthorne, who was a sister of Nathaniel Hawthorne, she discovered a person dying once when she lived in New York City, and she asked the city whether she and her friend could try to nurse them to health. And so they became like, instant nurses without any training. And then they asked the Dominican sisters whether they could become an order. Well, that formed the order of known informally as the Hawthorns. And the Hawthorns have gone throughout the country starting these hospice programs. And I worked with one of those when I was in Minnesota. That was pretty amazing. That's where my friend Deb ended.
I went to we went to visit a hospice at a local hospital there, and I'm always and I like how you said that you said that this one particular person was coming out of there, and just that kind of positive message. Whether it happens or not, I think when you go in there, you've got to believe that this is not the end. That there's always, as long as you're alive, there's a miracle. There's a chance for a miracle, and
Well, that's what Sister Luke, who was the head nurse there at the Hawthorne Hospice, told me. She said, the job of everybody here is to die. And I thought, geez, what a crazy thing to say. And now I think, like, what an amazing thing to say, because it's like a transition. You have to get your head wrapped around that transition. And a lot of people have a hard time, I think, dealing with death. And it's just a transition.
All right, we got somebody in the live chat saying about the true love question. Somebody put, it's complicated.
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh, that is funny. All right, how many in the live chat is Vaughn going to find true love? We're going to speak it.
Or in terms of communication, would he know it if he found it?
Right. We're going to speak it into your life. And Jade, our moderator, says, speaking of hospice, Vaughn, what happens to the soul when someone is in a coma?
Oh my gosh, that's a really good question. Well, I think that your soul can never be lost, because your soul is your divine connection to the great soul, the one soul. And I think that no matter how you die, or how suddenly, or how confused your state might be when you die, that your soul leaves. So it is possible that when you're in a coma, your soul then begins to cross over, you see, and then you're in this kind of state of, I don't want to say limbo because that has connotations, but you're in a coma. But I think that your divine connection is probably already kind of like checking out the new digs, so to speak, and then realizing whether it's time to leave or not time to leave. I think a lot of people who have had, let's say, near-death experiences or been, out of it, been unconscious, they would report that they had moments when they seemed to be crossing over, leaving this earth, and then determining whether it was time for them or not time for them. So I think that very likely when you're in a coma, your soul might be migrating, is what I'm saying.
So are you saying that when you're in a coma, you might get a glimpse of where you're heading?
A glimpse of where you're headed. People say, you go to the light, you follow the light. Once again, I think the light represents God.
So we talked about guardian spirits, lost pets. What about loved ones miles away?
Yes, loved ones miles away. This is a good one. So I have a whole chapter on this in the book, Mysterious Messages, because a loved one miles away will send you messages. They'll be thinking of you intently, and they'll send you messages. And it'll just be burning in you and say, I know what they're going through. They're going through a lot of anxiety, or they're going through a lot of pain, or they're thinking of me, or people that are lost, they'll be sending you messages. I think this happens a lot. So it's not always like the dead talking to you, or angels talking to you, or God speaking to you, or aliens even. I mean, it could be your pet, or it could be a loved one miles away, simply thinking of you. How many people out there have had this experience? You just know the phone's going to ring and someone's thinking about you. And it rings and it is exactly who you thought was calling. Mm-hmm. That's what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know exactly what that happened to me. I was thinking of somebody and the phone rang. It's like you just can't believe it when it happens, but it does happen. In fact, let me ask people in the live chat, have you had that happen to you where you thought of somebody, all of a sudden that phone rings, and we'll go from there. So when you say you get messages from people miles away, I guess messages can take any kind of form. So what determines a message from a coincidence?
Coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence. I think that everything is like, what's the term? Synchronicity, mm-hmm. in that it is the creation's way of telling you something is important. Pay attention. So when something like that happens, it seems like, whoa, what a coincidence. No, it was to catch your attention. It's like you going in and seeing something in the store right just after you had the thought of that thing that you saw in the store. And then you say, whoa, what a coincidence. No, it is synchronicity. It's like it's like creation telling you, no, you should be thinking about this. This is important. This is a message for you. Mm-hmm. So we get these messages all the time, but we don't always pay attention. I always look for them to happen like 3 times in succession, right? Boom, boom, boom. Then I know it's like, oh, something or someone's trying to get my attention. I should be alert.
Well, I think life is much more active than we give it credit for of what's actually going on. I mean, the spiritual guidebook says, he's aware of every bird that falls to the ground. He knows the number of hair on your head, and he knows the names of all the stars. And Vaughn, I don't know if you checked recently, but there's a heck of a lot of stars out there.
Yeah. So well, of course he does, because we're all divinely interrelated and interconnected. We're all one.
All right. So we did get a couple of replies here in the live chat about have you thought of somebody and get the phone call? Somebody said yep many times. So is there a lifestyle choice? We're talking about, somebody asked earlier, what are the exercises, how do you build that up? But is there a lifestyle to where you can actually move your life by paying attention to messages? Are there enough messages coming to us?
I think that people need to learn to meditate. Now, you can look at this as like a spiritual quiet time when you go within yourself and listen. You can go into a mode of listening, but you need to learn to meditate. Meditation is very important for every one of us, because we need to become in touch with our inner self, our inner consciousness.
Is meditation the same as praying?
Yes, exactly the same. We're just talking about different choices of words, So you get little books on your daily prayers. They're often called daily meditations. It's all the same.
So if a person says my life is like a roller coaster, is that because they're not paying attention to the messages?
Yeah, that's it. Because you see, the way synchronicity works is in the cosmic sense, you're always getting input saying, look at this, pay attention. Here's the message. Put it right in your face. And then if you don't pay attention, you'll get the same message. And if you don't pay attention to that message, you'll get it really in your face. Or maybe it'll be slightly different next time because you didn't pay attention the previous 2 times. And you keep getting this input. And these are like suggestions as to how to live your life, you see. Being, as we said earlier on, being on the right path. Because we get off the path.
There's a movie. One of my favorite movies is called Failure to Launch.
Yes,
with Matthew McConaughey in there, and things keep happening to him. He gets bit by a dolphin. He gets bit by some kind of ground squirrel, and and one of his best friends says, "Well, the reason is this happening because you're not on the right path."
That's it.
And so
That's it.
these animals were biting him, trying to give him the message that you're on the wrong path.
Yeah. So I saw a really good movie. I love movies about redemption. I really, really do. You know, because I think every one of us is looking for redemption. We've all made some bad turns on this path. And this is a movie called Wander Darkly. It came out without any fanfare in 2020, and it's about a couple that they don't communicate very well, and they're in a car crash and they die. And in the hospital, they come to realize that they're probably dead.
Whoa.
And they're not quite sure if they're dead. They're wondering if they're alive
Right.
in the hospital and just having these thoughts as they say, unconscious, or if they're dead and not sure. They're very confused the first part of the movie. But the second part of the movie is all trying to kind of review their life and how they failed to communicate and how they failed to understand each other and get along and be giving and but you see it's too late. They're dead. And this is very sad. You know, we're here in these physical bodies for a very good reason. You know, to have this adventure. And later on, yes, we may have thoughts beyond here, but we should be having them now. We need to line up our actions.
Well, I know that if you know, like from the Beatles song "Relax Your Mind and Flow Downstream," and the only reason I'm going to clear my mind, I wouldn't say for meditation, but my intention would be based on from the spiritual guidebook. It says, "Be still and know that I am God." So I would, and it's almost impossible. I mean, at least for me, to clear my mind within a second.
It's hard.
Oh, I got to cut the grass. No,
Yeah.
I can't seem to get past that, Vaughn.
But it always bothers me when they get these beautiful, you know, statements like that. Be still, like that, you know, and it's like, and yet, you know, still it doesn't compute, you know. I mean, it's so obvious that we have to be still in order to hear. So you mentioned the Beatles, and I have a story in the book. I don't know if it's on this, but the Beatles actually had an experience like this, mysterious message, and what it was is John Lennon had just been shot outside his apartment, and the three surviving Beatles at that time thought, well, in John's memory, they're going to go into the studio and record an album. And they did, and they went into there and they recorded an album in a studio, and they had just recorded a track called "Free as a Bird." Free as a bird.
All right.
And when they were done, everybody said, "Gosh, I just really felt John's presence in the room so heavy during that." And then they all heard the same thing coming out of a speaker. It was the voice of John Lennon saying something like, "Good on you, mates. That sounds good." And they ran over to the speaker, and do you know, that speaker was not connected. Was
Wow.
not connected. So you know, and they all had the same experience, you know. So if it's mass hallucination or delusion or an active imagination, it's amazing how they collaborated so fully on that one.
All right.
You know, but many people will get messages like this and the phone's not even connected. Like people get messages on phones that aren't even hooked up.
Usually your phone rings not connected. It's a poltergeist trying to get hold of you. All right. So somebody wrote this in here for you, Vaughn. It says, I got a friend who took a picture of a cloud formation that looked like 3 elephants. Then a couple of days later, I heard a TikTok message where a woman dreamed about a UFO that had 3 elephants on its side, and a man who came out of it was a clone. What does that mean?
I don't know whether the two are connected. You know, people are seeing pictures of elephants all the time. and that might not be
I think the
anything.
elephant is a very spiritual being.
It is. I mean, I've seen things in cloud formations that I thought were messages to me,
Mm-hmm.
because after I saw them, then they would dissipate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was like, whoa, I mean, the forces, all, formed a picture to communicate something
Mm-hmm.
to me. And then after I got the message, it became just a diverse cloud. So I do believe in cloud gazing, if you will, and the
Mm-hmm.
meaning of it probably did have some meaning. I do think that here's the thing, if it has meaning for you, it has meaning.
Mm. I mean, I occasionally look outside at night, and if I see a shooting star,
Yeah.
I always think that star is for me. That I came out here at the exact time, and that shooting star for me. Of course, one time I tried an experiment, and now I hope it wasn't tempting God, because you're not supposed to do that. But I said, God, if you're watching me, go ahead and just throw another one over there. Just show me. He didn't answer like that. So I kind of got to be careful about doing that. But anyway, so that didn't
Yeah.
work out. Oh, hey, Australian Ben says I often feel I'm dead when I'm awake, but
Yeah.
alive when I'm asleep. What's up with that?
Oh, thank you, Ben. That's one of my favorite thoughts. Uh, I think that a lot of people are kind of like dream walking. I think that we're very often, probably the only time we're really actively awake is when we're having a lucid dream. I mean, we're not really fully alive most of the time. We're just kind of wandering around, kind of in a fog. Um, so I think this whole idea of being alive and being dead, I think is really confusing for a lot of people, because I think that we're not fully awake. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We most people have not fully awakened. If we were awakened, then I think we would have much more awareness and insight.
How do we know that we're not the dream
Yeah,
that somebody else
yeah,
is having?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's very
How deep is that?
possible there's somebody else in a parallel world that's having a dream, and it's us, and it's like, I do think that we go somewhere in our dreams. I think we actually go somewhere, and I think that we
I
probably
kind of
live
kind of
some
with
kind
you
of a
on that.
life somewhere, and it's like, I'm kind of wondering, how many families and kids I have out there. I don't know.
All right, people in the live chat, do you feel like you're living in a dream? Now, some people believe that they're living in a nightmare. So,
Oh my
I
goodness,
guess that's a negative dream. And
that
other
is
people just
sad.
say, so we don't know whether it's a dream or it's a nightmare.
Yeah. So lucid dreams usually aren't like nightmares. Nightmares are usually these fitful, restless nights where you can't really turn off your mind. It just keeps working, trying to process concerns of yesterday and worries about tomorrow, trying to resolve questions that you couldn't resolve during the day. And the analytical mind is yet not fully asleep,
Mm.
and so it continues to grind away on these problems, and it's half asleep, so it's not going to get any better
Yeah.
answers.
I
And that's what we have our nightmares.
We've had a number over the years, been doing this program since 2003, had a lot of near death experiencers.
Mm.
And I know that from a clinical standpoint, I read an article one time where they said they found the chemical that's causing that tunnel.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so I'm thinking, no, you didn't. And you didn't find the God particle either. So stop it. I don't believe him in either case. I don't believe that tunnel going through and having the light and then seeing beings of light and seeing your life go before you. I don't believe that's a chemical process going on there.
Could be swamp juice.
Swamp gas, right?
Yeah, swamp
that
gas.
that seems to be that seems to be
Home
this
brew. Yeah.
that seems to be now. A grumpy old arm vet chimed in. He said, "I'm living the dream every day." We got people living the dream, Vaughn. I thought I was the only one living the dream.
Well, you're just one of them.
So
I like to think I'm living the dream. But I think the dream has to be a dream of service. That's what I think. It can't be just
wow,
like a personal,
that's another profound statement.
everybody thinks they're going to just lie on the beach and be happy. But we're only happy when we're doing something and helping others. Am I right?
Man, that's another simple but profound statement and well said. Absolutely. In fact, that's what we have. I mentioned the two poll questions on the website. There's actually three. And that third poll says, have you helped this week?
Yeah.
and you can choose from helped a friend, helped a stranger, gave a gift, said a
Yeah.
kind word, gave a smile, and somebody. And I left it in there. I'm going to help, but let's just check the results of that one. All right, 22% said they helped a friend and helped a stranger. 20% said they gave a gift, gave a smile. Now, who can't give a smile? Somebody says I
Yeah.
can't. Man,
Exactly.
I'm not kidding you, Vaughn. You know that as well as I do. A smile can literally change the direction of somebody's life.
Yeah.
And now let me give you a story here. And I don't like to say things because I feel like, man, if I got a reward, I don't want to steal it. But on the other hand, I wrestle with saying something that I may have done that might be considered good only to motivate. My only motivation is to tell others every day you can do things that make
Yeah.
a difference. So
Yeah.
we were eating at a restaurant, and I always try to look at the name of who the server is, rather than saying, "Hey, you, can you get me some coffee? Give me a steak, whatever." I say the name. Well,
Right.
I always do that, and I said it to this person, and they just completely stopped. I thought they were going to drop the dishes. She said, in the 3 years that I've been here, not a single person has addressed me by my name, and I thought
Wow.
she was getting ready to cry. So
Wow.
just that simple, recognizing somebody else. So yeah, you can give a smile, and believe me, that's like putting a rock in a pond, and it's going to have waves out there. But that's
Yeah.
service. That's what you said.
Sure.
Service is
Yeah.
the reason that we're
Yeah.
here. Service to others.
I mean, it's so easy to be kind, and it costs nothing. And in the final analysis, all the people that are rich and famous and smart and charismatic, it's the people who are kind you have the greatest feeling for.
Mm. Well, that's we've got. I think we've got some deep conversations here tonight. I think this has been a pretty overall positive interview here, Vaughn. And now about this book, where can people get it?
Well, you can get it online at Barnes and Noble online or in a bookstore. You can get it online at Amazon. Um,
Have
yeah,
you have you had any responses from it?
yeah, oh yeah, it's doing pretty well. I mean, I wrote this one as a sequel to the book on thought forms that was called Manifesting. It's
Mm-hmm.
like sending thought forms. This is a book on receiving thought forms, and then that they both are a kind of a sequel to the book on time shifts.
Mm-hmm.
So the next direction I go, and this fall I'm going to have a book on lucid dreams, because I think people can really explore and do a lot of work in their dreams. Dream working is very, very important for people.
Mm. So from what I gather, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you're not, and you said really kind of in the first hour,
Yeah.
you're not saying go out there and get a Ouija board and start contacting the
No,
dead.
no.
What you're saying is there are messages that come to everybody,
Yeah,
and you can if open your sort of vision to
yeah,
see there are
yeah.
messages maybe coming to you that may help you on your path.
Well,
Hmm?
exactly. I really don't encourage people. In fact, I discourage people from trying to contact spirits anywhere. Anywhere. It's like, well, I mean, he's saying like, don't contact your dead relatives or don't send messages out there for insight. It's like, I always tell people, quit asking things of God all the time. He's kind of busy. What can
Hmm.
you do for him? Come on, and it's like people are all the time trying to contact the spirit realm. I think this is the wrong way to go. I don't believe in mediumship or channeling or any of that. But if they're trying to contact you, I think you should listen.
Mm.
And it could be that someone that was very dear to you who has passed on just wants some closure or wants to tell you something.
Hmm.
And it just be open to listening. It
Hmm.
happens more often than many people might be aware,
Hmm.
that when people will pass on very often, usually within the first 3 days, they'll contact you in a
Hmm.
dream, or they'll come to you in a daydream, or they'll send a message to you, and it'll be very, very personal. And just be open to it. Just be willing to listen. It's very important to listen. My one of my first teachers always said, the most three important things I want you to learn are, you want to write them down: listen, listen, and listen. And I said, I think I'll remember it. He said, I don't know. Maybe you won't. So he wrote a book called Listen, Listen, Listen. But it's extremely important to learn to listen.
Hmm. And if people aren't getting messages, they can certainly look in the spiritual guidebook. It says right in the King James, it says, "Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path." So if you're not getting messages right there, you can get some messages onto your path. And perhaps once you're on the path, you might get these confirmation, like somebody say, a confirmation email, maybe a confirmation message from somewhere. Like you said, you don't believe in coincidence, and really, I don't either. And I like you use the word synchronicity. I think it's more appropriate.
Yeah.
That was synchronicity that happened to me with the book event, and
Yeah.
I've got a lot of those kinds of stories, and I actually want more of those. I look for those because I know they're out there, and I know personally if I'm not seeing them, it's because I've got distracted,
That's
and there's so many things that distract us, Vaughn, and that's another key. Let me just ask you as we start to close, what can we do to stop these distractions so that we start hearing the messages in our inbox?
It's very important to focus on what's important. I mean, most of what's happening around is just total distraction. We need to clear all this out and go inside and learn to listen. And this is a very quiet space. This is a place where you should be able to hear. You should be observant. You take all of this away. People say, well, it's hard. It's hard to turn it all off. I always say, do you have a television? They say, yeah. I said, how do you turn it off? And they say, oh, I use the remote. I said, no. You go behind and you pull the cord, and then when it goes black, now you're working. It's no, you don't just put it on pause. No, you don't turn down the volume. You pull the cord and it's gone. You need to absolutely strip away all these distractions of things that are really just kind of taking your mind off what's important.
So you think that the system actually is designed to distract us so we can't hear the messages because maybe they feel like the messages actually contradict what the system is trying to tell us?
I don't know why there's so much distraction in the world, but there certainly is. It's become a muddled mess. And I suppose, like most things, we've done it to ourselves. We've done this. I don't think we can blame anybody. We've just, in our confusion and our ignorance, we've just gone in 100,000 different directions trying to find out what's important so that nothing is important. We're on overload.
Mm-hmm. Wow. All right. Well, hey, Vaughn Braschler, we're at the end of the broadcast. Any final statements? Anything about your book or website? Whatever, you just go right ahead.
Well, go to the Amazon and you can look at the author page, and I'll tell you when this thing is going to be loaded, so you can see Daniel's wonderful show with me, and any future shows that will be listed there, or previous shows, or talk about upcoming books. I mean, I'm going to do some new books this fall. One will be the book on lucid dreams, so I'm actually going to do a television show pretty soon. I don't know how that's going to work.
All right.
I have a good face for radio.
Yeah. Well, good luck on the show. Hey, whenever that comes about, man, send me a link.
Thank you. Will do.
All right, Vaughn, I appreciate you coming on the show.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.